Hello, and now how to transfer a photo or image onto wood. So in this video I take a piece of wood and a photograph and I transfer it onto the wood and I seal it with a clear coat. So this will be a step-by-step video as usual, and I'll show you how I did all this, and there'll be a comparison of how I did several brightnesses of image onto the wood so you can see the variance, and do's and don'ts at the end, of course, to help you in your project. So what you're going to need are some light pieces of wood, a computer with a printer. You're going to need a sheet of labels. Avery is a common brand, scissors, tape, and plastic card to basically scrub it on. So this is the document I started with here. This is my original picture. I'm just doing this in Word. So this was my original picture, and all I did was resize them to what I wanted them to be. I played around a little bit with that so that I could fit quite a few on my label paper. And basically this is the original picture. This is duplicated down here. It's the same one. This is duplicated here, and these two are duplicated here. So what I've done is had to play with the contrast and brightness. In fact, I played with just the brightness. Some people might want to play with more than that. I'll show you. So I went into Format Picture. So in this case, I've added 20% to the brightness on that one, as you can tell from the original. And I cancel, and if I go down to the bottom one and I Format Picture, I went minus 20%, so that is darker. And those were the settings that I found those were the three that I thought would be worth trying. And I made doubles of them so I had some extras, and then you'll see how I cut them out with scissors as well. So that's what I recommend. If you have time to play around with it more, like I say, say if you wanted to go to format this picture and change your contrast, you see that I didn't want to get into any of that, but maybe if you've got time and you want to adjust that, you can really fine-tune it. In my case, I just used the brightness. So this is the label sheet. It doesn't matter how many labels are on it. If you happen to have one with however many shipping labels, whatever, that's fine. The idea is just to peel off the labels and leave the liner paper is what we're going to be printing on. So that's the idea. Now, as with all my videos, I don't always talk throughout them all, so I'm going to kind of come in and out where I think is needed with a narration. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to just step away, and I'll be back in a little bit. So this is a close-up of the print. You can see the ink is actually, it's not dry on there, so that's why I'm saying be very careful when you're touching this. You don't want to touch any of that image because it'll just wipe off. And you can see the differences in the brightnesses of the examples that I have. Alright, so I'm using a bunch of samples of cedar wood because I just had it laying around. I had another project. I just built behind the sofa table, which turned out really, really nice. I'll actually link that video here as well. You can see that. We don't call them sofas, we call them couches here in Canada. So anyways, we're going to just tape this on, and you're going to be, again, being careful not to touch until you're ready, and we're going to use the card to scrape it on. I do several kind of different techniques with this, and I'll go over at the end of with the do's and don'ts, kind of what worked best and what didn't. You'll see in a moment. Ironically, the first one I did was probably the best one. That's usually the way it works, and that wasn't the piece of wood that I wanted to use for my original. So that's the way it goes. But I ended up getting a pretty nice copy in the end. But this was basically practice, so I'll show you how I do some more practicing. So now when you're choosing your wood, have a look at it, inspect it, because there'll be different grain patterns. There could be some milling marks from the way the board was made, and like kind of divots or kind of chunks missing. So you want to just pick a really nice area, and that's why I'm practicing, is so that I kind of get a better feel for the grain patterns and such. So this is my real piece of wood that I wanted to transfer onto, and again, I'm just checking the grain pattern, how I want it to look. I'll do the tape and the scraping on, and I do a couple of takes of this as well, I think. So now is a comparison here of the three different brightnesses that I printed, and you can see the original photo is actually the best one for me. In my case, the dark was too dark and the light was a little too light. So I printed another sheet with just the original photo and the lighter one, because I didn't need the other one. I ran out of my sample sheets, so now I'm ready to try again for a real copy. the light color that I did, this is an overlay of this image and the one I did previous. I don't know if you can tell the difference or not. I had to tweak the image a bit to make it look like that, but you can see how the grain patterns matter with the wood, so I just thought that would be kind of cool to see. Now for do's and don'ts, you're going to want to use, do some testing and get some light colored woods. Don't touch the liner paper, the ink is wet, and try not to move the paper when you're doing it, and watch out for pits and rough wood in the final piece that you're going to use. Now don't touch the ink. Here's an example of me being dumb, and I'm trying to line up my camera shot, and I went and scraped over my nice piece. It didn't affect too much. I was only practicing at this point, but just be careful about things touching the ink. It might affect your image. Don't wrinkle them. Here's an example of me doing a little bit of a wrinkle, and it didn't affect in my case. There it was. I'm going to do a replay of that. Be careful, because that would also cause the image to look smeared or blurry. So be careful of wrinkling it. Now the technique, I didn't find scrubbing it, scraping it any different. That I think you're fine to do with however you want, as long as you give it a good rub. Finally, the option to add a clear coat of varnish. I added the spray kind. I added just a few coats to make it sealed, and it does darken it up a bit, but that's optional if you'd like to do that. It's up to you where you're going to be using it. So, alright, so thanks again for watching this one. My next video is coming up right here, and remember to let me know if you've got better ideas, if this worked for you, or help us all out if you can. Thanks.